Jonas Prising, welcome to Viva Tech. It's great to be live with you in this hybrid edition. Let's dive in for the big picture. Jonas, we really want to get your insights today. The human dimension of the future of work is at the heart of the health crisis. So much is at stake in terms of organizations, within groups and companies. We'll talk about that in a few moments, but let's start with you on the way you handled the crisis, this pandemic, and the way you experience it. Tell us, are you the same CEO today as you were a year ago? And is there anything that really has struck over the last year?
I think for most of us, it's hard to say that you can be the same person after going through a healthcare crisis like this.
That's true.
So, for many of us, running a business involves always adapting to changing environments, and things are changing very quickly. But to adapt to a healthcare crisis that is global in nature, and where the health and wellness of your people becomes your #1 priority, is not something that you exactly prepare for. So I think we've learned to be able to pivot very quickly, but also to value what is truly the most important asset that we have and protect that asset to the greatest degree possible. And that was the experience certainly that I had during the pandemic.
So in 2017, in an interview, you said that for you, a leader is defined by two things: his emotional intelligence and his ability to learn, his desire and ability to learn day in and day out. What did you learn from the crisis, and what skills does a good leader need today?
A lot of the leadership skills that you have to have over time are very similar. You have to be able to have an indicated direction, you have to be able to collaborate and motivate your people, communicate well. So I think that has really stayed constant. But in this day and age, I think the innate curiosity and desire to continue to learning is a necessity because things are changing. So getting to a leadership level is not the pinnacle of your experience, but it's the beginning of a new journey. So you have to be very good at acquiring new capabilities and knowledge, which I think is a very different feature from what it was like in the past.
To evolve, I mean.
You have to evolve and you have to stay current.
So what challenges you the most in your role as president and CEO of ManpowerGroup today in 2021?
One of the things that has clearly come to the fore during this pandemic is that we as corporate leaders have a broader responsibility that maybe many of us were thinking about from a stakeholder. Many of us, certainly not myself, were and are very used to.
Right.
That you have to think about this in a holistic sense, and that the interest, not only from our customers and for all of those that we employ at ManpowerGroup, but certainly from our employees, around our views around ESG, climate, social justice, how do we govern on ourselves, and what is our contribution to society at large, has become much more important. And we have to have a voice and a view and communicate what our purpose and our mission is to a much greater degree than we've ever had to be in before.
I love how you define it as a holistic approach. I think that's something leaders need to keep in mind. We know how important education is for the future and the future of work as well. According to you, what are the key skills for the jobs of tomorrow?
So, we believe that technology will impact really almost all facets of all kinds of professions. So of course, as you can imagine, anything to do with technology industry, and we are at Viva Tech, so of course this is a driver of skills needs. But I would say all jobs will be significantly impacted by technology. So again, the ability of continuous learning and the desire to reskill and upskill is really what's going to keep people employed today, but also with a good prospect for the future.
So now it's time for a little game, the CEO game, the CEO Stories game. I'm sorry, it's something all our CEOs are taking part in. So if I say C as in creativity, as you heard, what was your best idea in 2020?
I think how we as an organization adapted very quickly to the pandemic when it happened.
Right, and E for experience, what is the best lesson from this like past year, I would say?
I think the pandemic was a tough lesson in that while we are all in the same ocean, we're certainly not all in the same boat. And the impact of the pandemic has been very different to different people.
Right, and O for optimism then.
Well, you know, I am very pleased to say that we believe you are going back to the future of work, and technology will have a really positive impact in many people's lives.
Thank you so much, Jonas, for playing our little CEO game. Earlier, you were explaining how essential technology is in the job market. So far, our next session, let's dive in a little deeper with another guest, the Chief Talent Scientist of ManpowerGroup. Let's welcome to the stage Thomas Chamoreau-Prémusic. Now it's time for On My Watch. Please welcome. Thank you, Thomas. So good to have you here at Viva. Thomas, in your position, you are in charge of the development of data-driven solutions and insights. You want to create new value for clients and candidates, and you lead the Center of Excellence for Assessment and Analytics within ManpowerGroup. The focus is on driving predictive performance. Could you tell us what predictive performance means in concrete terms, and how can it help companies and especially people?
So it really is the ability to understand in advance whether someone will be able to perform well in a job in the future, even when you don't really know what that job might be.
Right.
So it really is an attempt to look at human potential in a way that has not been achieved before. You know, historically, you have to think that humans have never been really good at understanding each other, or ourselves even. And even though humans haven't changed very much in 300,000 years, the world has become a lot more complex. And so historically, you know, talent was mostly about social capital, which means who you know determines how far you can go. I mean, it's nepotism, really.
Right.
Then we moved on to the phase of intellectual capital, which is what you know, and that's qualifications, expertise, and hard skills. But now we are living in the age of psychological capital, where who you are should determine where you deliver and where you work and perform and add more value. And for that, you need a lot of data, and you need to have also human expertise that is able to translate that data into insights and fundamentally provide a better experience for employees.
So you have said that theoretically AI could be used to find the right person for the right role faster and more efficiently than ever before. Is AI better than humans?
Well, it is, but that's a very low bar, actually. So if you think about some of the things that humans, whether they're recruiters or hiring managers, do today, they are quite repetitive, predictable, and it's very hard to do this under a lot of time pressure. So for example, we know that recruiters don't spend much time scanning CVs and looking for keywords and matching those resume keywords or skills to jobs. So machine learning algorithms can do this well.
Right.
We know that in a human interview, in-person interview, interviewers are very distracted by things they should really ignore, such as the other person's gender, race, age, social class. And typically, humans are quite good at learning new stuff, but very bad at unlearning things. So to train a human to unlearn whether the person in front of them belongs to a certain demographic group is very, very hard. And to enhance that human interviewer with an algorithm or AI that can actually detect real signs of competence will definitely augment their ability to select the right person. So it's a little bit like we're all better drivers if we have Google Maps or Waze and we have a GPS, unless you really have so much expertise that that becomes irrelevant. But typically, we don't have so much expertise when it comes to understanding talent. We think we have, and that's very dangerous, but typically we don't.
Thank you, Thomas. Jonas has talked about upskilling and reskilling people at scale being one of the defining challenges of our time. What role do data and AI play in this?
Well, I agree. I think it's the most important challenge, perhaps, in human capital. And first, in order to leverage AI and data, we need to skill up humans so that they can understand how to use these complex technologies and systems. And then we also know that in order to identify whether someone has more or less potential for being upskilled or reskilled in a new area and really have the ability to reimagine someone's career and potential, you need to use data and AI to measure things such as their soft skills. You know,
Right.
do they have empathy? Do they have integrity? Do they have creativity? Do they have curiosity?
Right.
Again, when humans try to make these inferences, they're influenced by a lot of things that are noise and not relevant. You know, things like chemistry and charisma.
Right.
They really contaminate our evaluations of others. And the one thing you can be certain about when it comes to AI or machines is they're immune to charisma. They don't care about how funny or entertaining someone is, so they can actually detect, look at people's track record, past performance, and identify the relevant signals of potential while ignoring all the other irrelevant signals.
In a neutral and objective way, I think it is. So you're also a professor of business psychology at University College of London. You are the author of a best-selling book, Why Do So Many Incompetent Men Become Leaders and How to Fix It. I love that title. So tell us, what is your short answer and what is the solution to this?
Well, the main problem is that we are distracted and we select leaders based on their confidence rather than competence, based on their charisma rather than humility, and
Right.
often based on their narcissism rather than integrity. And again, the solution is pretty simple. Let's be data-driven. Let's use all the tools and the evidence we have to understand whether someone has the potential to be a great leader and make other people better rather than advance their own career. And in a way, that's what organizations are trying to do today. They're trying to be more talent-centric and more meritocratic. And I think the future is very exciting. You know, we're just in the beginning of this journey, and humans collaborating with machines and augmented by AI are going to provide a much better work experience for others and much better leaders as well.
Thank you, Thomas. Jonas, over the last year, remote working has taken off at a huge speed, and it's forcing companies across the globe to rethink the way they are organized. What is your perspective on this? What are the biggest trends to come?
I think a lot of the changes that we've seen during the pandemic were pre-existing trends
Right.
that then accelerated during the pandemic. But one of the new ones that I think really reached a tipping point has to do with the climate and the focus on sustainability, so ESG. And I think in particular, climate is now an accepted change that companies' business strategies are adapting to. And I think the same is going to be true for the social aspects of sustainability. And that's really, I think, the next big wave of change that is coming our way.
Thank you so much, Jonas. Thank you, Thomas, for being here. It was really a pleasure to have you both here on stage with me. We are almost at the end of this conversation, so now it's question time. And we have now a question from one of our fellow CEOs. It's from Paul Hudson, the CEO of Sanofi, who will be with us for more CEO stories on Friday. Let's hear the question from Paul now.
Hello, Jonas. Question for you. With the way things are evolving in the workplace, when you look forward with everything you know, what are the skills that new leaders are going to need as they emerge to manage in this new world?
Jonas, what do you think about that?
That's a great question from Paul, and as we talked about earlier, a lot of the traits that are already very important before continue to be, but the ability to be curious and continue to learn, the ability to find people with the specific talents and diverse talents so that you can respond in a disruptive world with disruptive ideas is going to be extremely important. But last but not least, in a world that is more increasingly gray and where companies have a voice on what is right and what is wrong, being able and need to be able to step out and be clear about what your purpose is, your mission, and your overall contribution to society will also be very important.
So we actually have some questions from the digital platform. Jonas, how can technology ensure a non-bias in talent management? This is from Nathaniel, who's joining us digitally.
That's a great question, and I'm sure Tomas will want to chime in on this one as well. But really, AI is baking into all of the things we are thinking, whether we know it or not. So it needs to actively be managed and moderated so that the biases that we live with, that we all have, are not reflected in AI. But maybe, Tomas, you will have a good comment on this as well.
Sure, I think the key is to understand that AI really is about finding patterns in data and predicting things faster and more accurately. And it can never be unbiased if what you're trying to predict is itself just a subjective opinion or preferences, right? So if you train algorithms to predict who gets promoted in a company, that might not debias the workplace if that person who gets promoted has been chosen on factors other than their talent or potential. But in that same system, you can use AI to detect and diagnose how often different people get promoted and to really highlight the gap between people's value and potential and their career success. That's what we're trying to eliminate. That's how you make organizations more talent-centric and meritocratic.
So we have another question as well from the platform. It's from Varun, who's also joining us digitally. Hello, Varun. Where do you think the tech world stands in 10 years in terms of sustainability and reducing carbon footprint, which has been quite a huge topic this year?
Well, as we talked about earlier, I think we've reached a tipping point on the public's, organizations, and society's awareness of the need to meet the net carbon zero emission goals. And we ourselves are committed to exactly the same journey and the same objectives. So I have to say, I think technology has a huge role to play in achieving those targets. I think it will be the enabler of making it happen and making it possible so that we get to those targets in what is a very short time frame.
So quickly, I have a question for both of you, I think. How far can automation go when it comes to recruiting new talent in a large company? And do you believe that AI will play a bigger role in the future in HR? I'll let you start, Jonas.
We certainly believe that degrees of automation will enable people's decision making, but it will never replace the judgment that we need from our team members. So we have a very positive view on the impact of technology and AI in our business. We think it will enhance the capability of our team members to make faster and better and more accurate decisions. But Tomas, chime in as well.
I agree, and I think the real challenge for humans is to ensure that they continue to develop expertise to add to the technology, right? What is it that that I can't just Google or find out there, and that's your value. And ultimately, things like empathy, real connections, curiosity, and even creativity, they will never be able to be automated, and that's the value. So in recruitment, we can leverage technology to kind of free up and unleash the value of human recruiters so that they can actually establish a connection with people, humanize the workplace, and really understand or identify things that machines are not very good at.
Thank you so much, you two, for being on stage with us. I hope to see you very soon for more discussion.